Welcome to the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, CEO of Cooper Financial Investments and host. And also, as always, I want to welcome my amazing co-host, Tony Shore. How you doing today, Tony?
Oh, I am so good, Brad. Once again, I had a great Easter weekend with the
Yes.
family. All of our kids made it and all their significant others. And my mother-in-law and even a couple of stragglers we picked up who didn't have a place to go on Easter. So all of us went out for a nice Easter brunch. We didn't cook in, but then everybody came back over to our house and we did Easter crafts, played some games. It was a great day. Great day.
Oh, that's great. Same here. I know we were talking right before the show as far as something we do very well. And I would say probably you and I are some of the best. And that's eating good food and getting plenty to eat.
Yes.
So
I ate my own weight in Eggs Benedict at the Easter brunch. I wanted to make sure we got our money's worth. It wasn't cheap. So, 14 people, but I think I made that place pay because the price of eggs, I ate enough eggs.
You're right. I know, but no, it's great. It's always a blessing to be around family, and there's no guarantees for any of us for tomorrow. So even though as you're talking and sharing stories with other friends, we all have the same story to tell. Various family members. We all have those family members, that aren't normal, or maybe they're looking, maybe we think they're not normal, but maybe we're not normal. That's probably the truth.
In my family, I'm probably that person. So I got to watch what I say. But yes, yeah.
Oh, but you love them. And
sure.
That's, it's one of our most favorite things to do, whether it's on holidays or weekends, is just spending time with the family, and nothing like it.
It's true. There is nothing like it. It's great. Well, and we've got a great show lined up. I know you brought this topic, and this is something that I like to talk about because it affects pretty much everyone, all of our listeners and viewers out there. Most of them probably have a 401k or some other similar employer-sponsored account, whether that's a 403b or 457 or a TSP. So there are mistakes you can make with these employer-sponsored accounts, right? A lot of people make 401k mistakes that can be extremely costly. And I'm glad we're going to talk about this today, Brad.
And we're seeing this on a, almost a weekly basis. Conversations I'm having, it just, and I get frustrated, I guess, with, companies that provide these plans. Of course, fill out all the paperwork, fill out what investments you want. And usually it stops there. I know a lot of these big plans, they have maybe a representative from the investment firm come in once a month, once a year, but still, a lot to consider when you're making that decision and ongoing too. I just had a meeting last week, and we're just talking about market conditions, Tony. Have you noticed the market's kind of been ugly the last few months?
You know what? When I turned on CNBC today, Brad, this is what I heard.
Robinson, danger! No, Will Robinson, danger!
Boy, so true. So my recommendation to all of our listeners is turn your TVs off. Do not watch the news or the markets. And like my mom always says, and this too shall pass. And I believe that. And we talked about that, I believe, last week as far as the outlook and what our managers and analysts are looking at. And overall, they're still positive. But we're going to see some, turbulence and continued turbulence on Wall Street, I think, for the next several months off and on. So hang in there. But that ties also into 401ks. I had a discussion last week, and I was just talking to this new couple. I said, how's your investments doing? And they said, well, we have 401ks, Tony. They told me. And I said, well, good. How are they doing? Oh, they're doing great. We haven't lost any money. And then I started digging a little bit deeper. They're putting in each about $1,000 to $1,500 per month. So they're not tracking the losses. They're just seeing the balance stay the same or go up a few dollars, even though they're going backwards, probably $1,000 a month in their plans. So, but that can be misconceiving though, because, we're going to talk about don't make these 401k mistakes, and there's
Right.
several of them. And one, which, I shared with them is, here's what most people do. And I was guilty of this years ago. You just put money in and it's payroll deducted, out of sight, out of mind.
Set it, forget it.
That's right. And that's not a good plan. And this is the time where if you have a 401k, after we get done with the show, take a look at that. You can reach out to us and have us interpret that statement for you and see if you're taking the proper allocations. But pay attention, because I know, Tony, with the majority of our clients today that are retired, their biggest asset was their 401k. So important.
Yep. Yeah, that's huge. So what's a big mistake that we should be watching out for? What's something we should know? I mean, you can really, we're not just talking about $1,000 here and there. We're talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over your career that you could lose if you don't do things quite right. Correct?
That's correct. I just read a Kiplinger article titled 8 401k mistakes that could tank your retirement. That's kind of scary, especially if you've been working for years and you're wanting to try to retire this year or maybe next year. I'll never forget, this is back in 06, 07, right before, the crash started, which I think was around November of 2007. I was talking to this individual who's been working at a bank for over 40 years. He was so excited about retiring in 08, 09. He shared with me all the plans he had and his wife. And we all know what happened in 08 and 09. Yep. He lost over 50% of his 401k. As a result, he didn't retire in 2008, 2009. He retired in 2019, just about 5-6 years ago. So when it comes to mistakes, identifying a risk, which we'll talk about probably more here shortly, but this was astonishing, Tony. A third of all Americans, that's a big percentage, cash out their 401ks early, before the age of 59 and a half. And you know what happens when that happens, right?
Right. Huge ticking tax time bomb and a lot of problems, penalties.
So let's just break down the numbers pretty simple. Let's say you have $100,000 in a 401k and you cash that in and you're younger than 59 and a half. Let's say you're in a 20% tax bracket. So automatically your 100,000 becomes what? 80,000. Then the IRS imposes a 10% penalty on top of that. So now you're walking away with 30% less, basically more like $70,000. And that's not even including state taxes. So you could be walking away with maybe 60 to 65,000 out of that 100,000. And there's so many other solutions. But again, I don't blame a lot of Americans for doing that, but I do blame our industry for not giving them the education and the information, to let them make that choice after they know the facts and the consequences.
Yeah, somebody needs to tell them, hey, if you do this, you're not getting $100,000. You're getting between $60,000 and $70,000. And if you take it before you're 59 and a half, and if you cash it out, it's not good. You're going to pay full taxes on everything, the growth in the principal, and you're going to get penalized. That's the IRS doesn't like that. Plus, you shouldn't withdraw from a retirement account before you retire anyway, right?
Right. And it just reminds me, I just had a conversation about 2 weeks ago on the same topic. They were under the age of 59 and a half. They had they've done very well over the last 20, 25 years, had way over $1 million in their 401k. But a financial emergency came up and they need to get their hands on $100,000. So, we just talked about that. They'd end up walking away with about 65,000 if they would have taken that from their 401k. However, and I know we talked about this a couple shows ago, Tony, but this is a conversation I'm having with everyone. If you have a home and you have quite a bit of equity, which a lot of people do here in Arizona because property values have increased substantially the last 5 to 10 years, look into getting a home equity line of credit. Open disclosure, we don't do them. We don't make money from them, but just to have that, as a reserve for emergencies. Number one, you better be disciplined. If you're not disciplined, forget what I'm telling you to do. But by having that home equity line of credit, if they needed $100,000, they could pull from that tax-free. Then they wouldn't have had to dip into their 401k or their IRAs and be hit with penalties and taxes. Yeah. So that's number one. But another mistake, and we're really screaming and talking about this message when it comes to 401ks. Traditionally, for years, there's just been one basically 401k traditional plan where the money you put into this plan, Tony, is tax deferred, and you can deduct it from your income as well. You don't have to worry about paying taxes now. However, when you retire and you start pulling money out with all the gains and all the money you put in over the next 10, 20, 30 years, 100% of that amount is taxable. And that's not a bad plan for a lot of folks out there. And that was the only thing they offered years ago. But here recently, in the last few years, there's also what's called a 401k Roth, or a Roth 401k. So what's the difference? Now you're putting after-tax money into it. All your earnings over the next 10, 20, 30 years, let's say your money doubles, triples, quadruples, all that money is tax-free when you retire.
And most companies just started offering Roth 401ks over the last few years, right?
Exactly. And so that's a conversation. 401ks are great. We encourage everyone who is offered a 401k to participate, which leads into another mistake. Is I have this conversation occasionally with, people is, are you contributing to your 401k? Well, no. I said, what are they matching? Well, I think, Brad, they're matching 4, 5, 6%. I said, big mistake. Contribute what they will match. Get that free money. That's free money that you're giving up on a monthly, annual basis that could compound over the next 10, 20, 30 years to tens of thousands of dollars.
If they're going to match up to 6%, you need to find out what's the maximum I have to put in to get the full match. You want the full match, and then put in that amount. That's the minimum you should put in your 401k, because you're going to get that free match, and that's free money.
That is. So definitely take advantage of that free money. Then if they offer especially if they offer a 401k Roth, and they're contributing and matching, that's a no-brainer there.
Yeah.
But, most advice that we give with the help of our tax team is, let's say they match 3%. Of course, put in that amount into a traditional 401k, get the free money, stop there. Then we will look at other tax-free accounts, Roth IRAs. There's life insurance, and the list goes on of other tax-free strategies.
Yeah.
That
you got to have some money put aside for retirement in that tax-free bucket. And I think it's great they offer Roth 401ks. If not there, a Roth IRA. And I know you've helped so many people make sure that they have a balance. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. A Roth IRA might not be right for every single person listening, depending on their situation, because they might not fit into the category or the income that allows them to make it worth it. It depends what their time horizon is and how much they have saved for retirement. But if you're going to have a certain income in retirement that you're shooting for, a lot of people are going to want money in a Roth, because they want it. That comes out. You pay the tax now when the amount is small, and it grows tax-free, and it all comes out tax-free. Unlike a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, it's all 100% tax, the growth and the principal. When you pull it out and need it in retirement, you have to pay full taxes, right?
Absolutely. What you said, Tony, is so important. But, as you were speaking and, making sure you get the right advice and income planning and taxes, that's what we do at Cooper Financial. And basically, you want to work with a holistic financial planner that's going to address not only investments, but also future taxation and estate planning, and the list goes on. And what I'm finding, Tony, with the majority of our clients, retired, not retired, as I'm having this conversation, you know how much advice the average person gets on their 401k? Very little.
Very little to none, right? Yeah,
You know,
none.
Missouri, slogan just comes to mind: slim to none, and
Yep,
slim left
slim to
town.
none. Slim to none and slim left town. I like
That's
that.
right.
That's great.
So work with a financial planner who's takes a holistic approach and
Yeah.
focus on, when do you want to retire? That may be at 62, So you want to make sure you know your Social Security options. You want to make sure that, whatever amount you want coming in from your investments, Social Security and other plans on a monthly basis, you want to make sure that you're saving enough on a monthly basis to achieve that goal. And if there is a shortfall, we'll be able to identify that and share that with you. So it's kind of like a GPS, I call it, a GPS to retirement, knowing exactly where to go, what turns to make. When an obstacle or a traffic jam comes about, they'll tell you to reroute and reroute and go a different direction. And that's kind of the planning we do. So that, but also another big mistake, and it just reminds me of a conversation I had a couple years ago. So many people today, more so than ever, Tony, are changing jobs, right? They're switching jobs. And what happens is you're leaving your 401k with your previous employer. And I believe Vanguard, from what I read, studied, showed that 55% of job switchers lost out on over 300 grand in the retirement savings because they didn't increase their contributions and keep track of their 401ks. So this reminds me, which I see on a regular basis, this is probably the worst case that I came across in years. Have a now client, I won't mention their names, but when I met them, they changed jobs over 12 times in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
All right.
It happens.
And when they came to me, Tony, they were concerned. They were in their 50s. They're wanting to retire early 60s. And they said, Brad, I don't think we have any hope of retiring before 70. We just don't have that much money. So as we started digging and going through the fact and finding session that we do and just probing, we found out that with the 20 jobs that he's had in the last 20 years, or actually 12 jobs it was in the last 20 years, we found that most of them he left 401ks. So long story short, after our help, and they really worked hard for about 90 days, they discovered about 10 401ks that they've forgotten about, which totaled over $825,000.
Oh my gosh.
So we were definitely the bearer of good news when we did income planning for them, because now they're on track to be able to retire by age 60 if they want. So, but it's great. So easy. And I was told
it's easy to forget about them. People say, oh, I'd never forget about 50 grand in a 401k. But if you move jobs, it doesn't transfer with you. And especially when you're younger, you don't realize that sometimes, or you forget about it. And people do. Right. I got the company I worked for got bought out, and I just thought it transferred over automatically. And then when I left that company, I'm like, this is only about half of what it should be. I realized that I still had a 401k through the company that the first company I started with that got bought out had. So it happened to me. It can happen to everyone.
Yes. And, and there's pros and cons, and that's another discussion you want to have with a financial service professional is, what's the advantages, disadvantages with leaving it? Let's say you retire. And Tony, I'll use you for an example. You have about 25 million in your 401k, right? Or is it 30 million?
Oh, yeah.
After the loss in the market this year, of course.
Yeah. It's a daily thing. It goes up 10 or 12 million or down 10 or 12 million a day. I can't keep track.
Let's say that you just recently retired, and a discussion you want to have with a financial service professional is, what's the pros, what's the cons, the advantages, disadvantages between rolling all of it over to an IRA or keeping some with your 401k. And there's reasons why maybe you should considering keeping it with your 401k, believe it or not. But also, a lot of people don't know this, but if you have a 401k with a previous employer and their financial stability is not good, they go out of business, there's a chance that that 401k could disappear and not be protected. That doesn't happen hardly at all, but that's true with pensions also. But, there are advantages and disadvantages. Most of the time, in my opinion, what we see, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages because you have more control. You
Right.
get to choose your investment options, and you get to do a lot more with an IRA that you cannot do with a 401k.
Yeah. So there's really 4 options you have when you leave a job. What you can do with that 401k, you can just leave it there, which you're
Right.
saying is not a good idea for many reasons.
Right.
You're no longer contributing to it. You can't
True.
contribute to it, so you can't help it grow. You're not dollar cost averaging in; it's just sitting there. And then number 2, you could forget about. But that's the first thing, is leave it there, and you don't advise that. The second thing would be to cash it out, and we've already talked about why that's a bad idea, right?
Terrible.
Unless you're retiring, and even then, you probably want to transfer it into some other type of account. You definitely don't want to do anything with it without working with somebody like yourself.
Right.
So leave it there, cash it out. Those are off the table, right?
Right.
The other would be to roll it into if you're going to a new company, one option is to roll it into the new company's 401k, and that's okay, but still probably not the best option. And wouldn't you say, you've said on the show before that the fourth option is rolling it into an IRA,
Right.
some type of an IRA where you have more control, right?
Yes. What I like about rolling that over to an IRA, individual retirement account, that puts you in the driver's seat. You have control.
Sure.
And as we're sitting down and having discussions with everyone we meet with the help of our tax team, we're talking about tax planning. We're talking about Roth conversions and other tax-free conversions. And that's sometimes more difficult or impossible to do from a 401k to an IRA Roth account. So you have more control, number one, for taxes. Secondly, our risk may change as we get older. I'll be 25 this year. Did I say 25? I meant 58. I know I look 25, right, Tony?
You don't look a day over 26. Worst
Thank
case
you.
scenario.
Thank you. But no, I'll use myself for an example. I'll be 58 later this year in October. And
You're catching up to me.
I know, not too far behind you. But as we both get older and closer to retirement age, that is, we need to reevaluate our risk. And we may not want to take as much risk as we have been the last 20 or 30 years. And
Right.
there's so many additional investment strategies and options for you when it's in an IRA. And a financial service professional can help you with those serious and big decisions.
Yeah. And that's crucial. I mean, it's critical that you do that and work with a professional. Don't do anything or make any moves with your 401k or any other type of investment account or retirement account without talking to a trusted financial professional, a
Right.
fiduciary, somebody like yourself. And Brad, I know you're more than happy to meet with our listeners out there and talk to them about this, correct?
Yes, because, don't hesitate about calling. I know there's a lot of CPAs or some financial planners that will charge you if you pick up the phone and call. We do not do that. I would rather you call and ask those questions, especially if you need to pull money out, if you need money, whether it's for medical bills, a down payment for a house, another financial emergency, whatever the case may be, make that phone call to us, email us, and we will tell you the pros and cons, the consequences to every decision that you may make. And you definitely want to have that conversation because that could save you tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow. Yeah, and that's huge. Well, is there anything else you want to add before we have to go today?
There's just 401ks are great. And, we could talk probably another hour, Tony, on this topic. But
Yeah.
I guess at the end of the day, if you have a 401k option, take advantage of it. Consult with your financial service professional to make sure you need to do what you need to do to be able to retire at the age you want to retire at. But starting is the key.
Yeah. And if our listeners or viewers want to get a hold of you or have questions about this, how can they do that?
Yes, if you just want to send us a question via internet, go to financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com. Type in your question. We love to answer questions that you may have. Or you can pick up the phone and call us toll-free, 888-390-5277. Again, that's 888-390-5277. And our team will answer any question that you have at no cost. And what I love, which we do often on a daily basis, we'll sit down for no obligation consultation, no cost, and just over a cup of coffee, iced tea, water, and just answer questions you may have. And,
all right.
And that's what we enjoy most, is the impact and the helping of each individual that comes in.
It's rewarding, isn't it? And I know you love helping people in the community, and that's what you do there at Cooper Financial, and you've done for so many years, Brad. Thanks for a great show. 401ks are important. There are a lot of rules and ins and outs with employer-sponsored retirement accounts. So before doing anything, make sure you pick up the phone, give Brad and his team a call. Again, that number is 888-390-5277, or go to financialarmorshow.com. And that does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.